Let's get right into it. Number 10. Ely Murillo-Moncada. In 2009, a 25-year-old grocery store worker ran out of his house in Council Bluffs, Iowa, during a blizzard. He was barefoot, wearing just a hoodie and light pants. His parents said he was acting weird, talking about hearing voices telling him to eat sugar. The police searched everywhere, but Larry had vanished into thin air. For 10 years, his family had no idea what happened to him. Then in 2019, workers were taking apart his old workplace, a supermarket that had closed down. Behind a 12-foot cooler, they found a body wedged in an 18-inch gap. Turns out Larry had climbed up there. It was a spot where employees would secretly hang out during breaks. He must have lost his balance and fallen into that tiny space between the cooler and the wall. The cooler's constant humming would have drowned out any calls for help. He was trapped there, slowly dying, while customers shopped just feet away. For a decade, people walked past him every day, not knowing he was there. They confirmed it was him from the blue clothes he was wearing, the same ones he had on when he disappeared. Number 9. Beth Doe. In 1976, someone found 3 suitcases floating in the Lehigh River in Pennsylvania. Inside was a dismembered teenage girl, pregnant with a full-term baby. The killer had cut off her nose, ears, and breasts. They never found those parts. She had cryptic letters and numbers written in ink on her hand, but nobody knew what they meant. For 44 years, she was just Beth Doe, another nameless body in a cold case file. Then in 2021, DNA testing finally gave her a name, Evelyn Colin. She was just 15 years old when she disappeared from Jersey City. Her boyfriend told everyone she'd moved to Connecticut with the baby. He even sent them a letter saying she was happy and didn't want contact. That boyfriend is now in prison for her murder. Her family spent 44 Christmases wondering where she went. All that time, she was buried under a headstone that just said, Beth Doe. Number 8. Lady of the Dunes. In 1974, a 12-year-old girl found something horrifying in the sand dunes of Cape Cod. There was a woman's body laid out on a beach towel, like she was just catching some sun, except her head was nearly cut off and her hands were completely missing. The killer had pulled out all her teeth too. They really didn't want anyone finding out who she was. For almost 50 years, she was just known as the Lady of the Dunes, with nothing but auburn hair in a ponytail and pink nail polish on her toes. Then in 2022, she was identified using DNA testing. She was named Ruth Marie Terry. She was 37 years old, from Tennessee. Right before she died, Ruth had married a guy named Guy Moldavin. Turns out this wasn't his first rodeo with mysterious deaths. His previous wife and stepdaughter had vanished years before, but we can't ask him about it. He died in 2002, taking whatever secrets he had to the grave. So while we finally know who the Lady of the Dunes was, we might never know exactly what happened on that beach towel. Just imagine being a missing person for so long that you become a ghost story. Number 7. Melissa Highsmith. Back in 1971, a 21-month-old baby vanished from Fort Worth, Texas. Her mom had put an ad in the newspaper looking for a babysitter. A woman showed up wearing white gloves, looking all proper and trustworthy. She took baby Melissa and disappeared. For 51 years, the case went cold. Melissa was living right there in Fort Worth the whole time, going by the name Melanie. She had no idea she was kidnapped. The breakthrough came when her kids did a 23andMe DNA test. Probably just wanted to find out if they were 2% Viking or whatever. Instead, they accidentally solved one of the longest missing persons cases in history. Just imagine passing by your real family at the grocery store for 50 years and never knowing it. They finally reunited during Thanksgiving 2022. The woman who raised Melissa claims she bought the baby for $500, but the original kidnapper who answered the ad has never been found. Number 6. Samantha Hopper. In 1998, a 20-year-old pregnant mom and her toddler vanished in Arkansas. Samantha was heading to drop off her daughter Courtney before a concert in Little Rock. They never made it. For 23 years, their families put up Christmas decorations without them. Empty chairs at every holiday dinner. 2 decades of birthdays with no one to blow out the candles. Then, in 2021, a group called Adventures with Purpose showed up. They're like underwater detectives who solve cold cases for free. These guys found something in the water that police missed for 2 decades. There was Samantha's car, sitting at the bottom of a river. Inside were the remains of Samantha, her unborn baby, and little Courtney. They'd been underwater this whole time, just a few miles from home. For 23 years, people drove over that bridge every day. Kids probably fished off it during summer break, never knowing they were casting their lines right above a family frozen in time. The water had preserved everything like a time capsule. All those searches, all those theories, all those years of wondering, and they were just sitting there, waiting for someone to look in the right place. Number 5. Little Miss Nobody. Back in 1960, a 4-year-old girl was playing in an alley behind her house in New Mexico. A dark green car had been creeping around her neighborhood for weeks. That day, they finally made their move. When Sharon refused to get in their car for candy, they just grabbed her and drove off. 10 days later, they found her body partially buried in the Arizona desert. She was so decomposed, they couldn't even tell who she was. The local community refused to let her be buried as a Jane Doe. They raised money to give her a proper burial, calling her Little Miss Nobody. Her headstone read, "Blessed are the pure in heart." For 62 years, she stayed Little Miss Nobody. Then in 2022, DNA testing finally gave her back her name, Sharon Lee Gallegos. They had to get DNA from her half-brother in Germany to confirm it. Her real grave is just a few hours from where she was kidnapped. All those years, her family had no idea she was buried under that sad little headstone. The people in the green car were never found. Number 4. Joyce McLain. In 1980, a 16-year-old girl went for a jog in East Millinocket, Maine. Just a normal summer evening run around the high school. Joyce never came home. They found her body days later in the woods behind the soccer field, right there at her own school, where she should have been safe. For 38 years, her killer walked free while her family put up Christmas decorations without her. The evidence was there from the start, but 1980s technology couldn't make sense of it, so Joyce's case sat cold while science caught up. Then in 2018, everything changed. Modern DNA testing finally cracked what those old clues were trying to tell us. Philip Scott Fournier, a guy who'd been on police radar since day one, finally went down for it. He'd been living in their small town the whole time, shopping at the same stores as Joyce's mom. Imagine being that mother, passing your daughter's killer at the grocery store for 38 years. Number 3. Sophie Sergie. In 1993, a 20-year-old native Alaskan student went for a smoke break at her friend's dorm in the University of Alaska. She never came back. The next morning, they found her body in the women's bathroom. For 30 years, the case went cold. The killer had left DNA, but back then technology wasn't good enough to do much with it. Sophie's family just had to live with not knowing who killed their daughter. Then, in 2018, investigators tried something new: genetic genealogy. They took the killer's DNA and compared it to genealogy websites, kind of like how people use 23andMe to find long-lost cousins. The DNA led them to Stephen Downs, a freshman who lived in that same dorm back in 1993. He'd been living a normal life as a nurse in Maine while Sophie's family grieved for decades. In 2022, they finally got him. 75 years in prison, but now he's appealing, saying it's not fair they used his relative's DNA to catch him. Number 2. Patricia Kopta. Back in 1992, a street preacher known as the Sparrow vanished from Pittsburgh. She was famous in her town for preaching about the Virgin Mary and warning everyone about the end of the world. One day, her husband Bob came home, and she was just gone. For 30 years, nobody knew what happened to her. Her family eventually had her declared legally dead. Then in 2023, a wild phone call changed everything. A care home in Puerto Rico had an 83-year-old woman who kept dropping hints about being from Pittsburgh. DNA tests confirmed it was Patricia. Turns out she'd made her way to Puerto Rico and never left. The staff found her wandering the streets back in 1999. So while her family was mourning her death in Pittsburgh, she was living in a warm climate. She spent her life preaching about the apocalypse, but ended up in the Caribbean instead. Now she has dementia and barely remembers her old life. And we still don't know exactly how she got to Puerto Rico. Number 1. Theodore Egge. In January 2023, a 35-year-old man borrowed his roommate's blue Jeep Liberty and vanished into the Wisconsin winter. Security cameras caught him filling up at a Quick Trip, then driving north. The next day, his car ran out of gas in Athelstane. A stranger gave him half a gallon of gas and told him where to find more. But Theodore had other plans. He started walking down Benson Lake Road, asking people for directions to his own address. Then he vanished into the winter woods. His roommate's Jeep sat empty on the roadside. The borrowed phone in his pocket went dark. For 3 months, search teams combed the area. Dogs sniffed through snow. Firefighters and volunteers walked the forests in lines. In April, they found his body in the woods of Athelstane. He'd been struggling with mental health issues, wandering through those trees while search teams looked everywhere else. Just imagine being that close to help, but somehow still too far away. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.